really love this recipe. Yeah, what can I say? It's really good. I just love this one. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create my very favorite white chocolate with ganache with only 3 ingredients. This white chocolate ganache has the most silky smooth texture, and I love to use it on top of my cakes if I want to decorate them with some kind of cream. Because seriously, this ganache has the most silky smooth texture that just melts on the tongue, and it's super easy to make. Before we get started, let's talk briefly about what a whipped ganache actually is and how it differs from a cream or a mousse. So a whipped ganache is a combination of usually chocolate, heavy cream and sometimes gelatin that you mix. Then it needs to set overnight or at least 6 hours in the fridge before you can whip it the next day. So the fact that the mixture gets to set allows it to get this like very silky, smooth and velvety texture that is characterizing for a whipped ganache. On the other hand, a cream is mixed straight away and doesn't need to set and be cold. You usually also would use cocoa powder instead of chocolate, so it does have a quite different consistency. It's more light and airy, but it's not smooth and velvety as a whipped ganache, so I would say, trust me, the whipped ganache is definitely worth it. A mousse is also different from a whipped ganache because when you make a mousse, you will take the chocolate and mix it with hot cream and gelatin. And this you will then mix with whipped cream, so cream that is already whipped. So it has a very light and airy consistency, but it's not smooth and velvety as you will see in a whipped ganache. But if you want to learn more about how to make a mousse, you can also check out my rhubarb mousse tutorial here. This white chocolate whipped ganache recipe has gelatin, as you can stabilize a whipped ganache in 2 ways, either by adding more chocolate or by adding gelatin. And since I don't want to add too much chocolate because white chocolate is by itself quite sweet and I don't want the cream to be too sweet, I've added some gelatin. And this also makes sure that the whipped ganache has the perfect texture to be used for piping, while we at the same time has the perfect flavor balance with the white chocolate. To make a whipped ganache that fits as decoration on 6 to 8 cakes, we are going to need 125 grams of white chocolate, 300 milliliters of heavy cream. Half of it needs to be cold, half of it needs to be heated. And the reason why we split it in the hot and the cold is because when you heat up cream, you destroy the molecules that needs to be there to actually whip the cream again to a thick consistency. So that's why we have half of it, 150 milliliters, we need to have it cold, and 150 milliliters we need to heat. And lastly, we need 1.75 gelatin sheets or 1 sheet and 3/3 gelatin sheets, bloom value 240. The first thing we're going to do is to soak the gelatin in cold water. And here it's always a good idea to put the sheets down one at a time instead of poking it like this, because then sometimes it doesn't dissolve properly. So I'm just putting it down one at a time. And then it needs to soak here for 5 to 10 minutes. So it kind of fits with that I'm gonna go on to the next step of making the whipped ganache, while this one I'm just gonna put aside. The next step is to melt the white chocolate, and I'm just gonna do it directly here in the pot. You can also use a water bath. I just prefer doing it in the pot because it's quicker. And as long as you do it at a very low heat and you keep stirring to make sure it doesn't overheat, then it's totally fine doing it without a water bath. You just really need to monitor it to make sure you don't overheat the chocolate. Some whipped ganache versions just use chopped chocolate, so not melted. I just always melt it to be sure that all the chocolate will be melted, because since half of the cream is cold, if you only have big pieces of chocolate, it can be that you won't melt all of the pieces. So this is just to make sure that we won't have any clumps of chocolate when the cream is done. Now that the chocolate is all melted, I'm gonna pour it into a bowl. And we will put this aside while we heat 1/2 of the cream, the 150 milliliters that we will mix in the white cream here. The next step is to heat half of the heavy cream almost to a boil. So here we have 150 milliliters, so half of the 300. And we only want to heat this almost to a boil, so not fully boiling. So I'm taking it at a medium to high heat. It's a good idea to stir it a bit while you heat it up to make sure that the heat is evenly distributed. Because if this is too hot, it will split the chocolate. So it just almost needs to boil, not fully boiling. So what I can see here, it's starting to smoke. and there is slight bubbles around here, as you can see in the side. So that indicates that it's not fully boiling, but almost at the boiling point. So just this step is important. Make sure it's not too hot. Now we have our hot cream. We're gonna add the soaked gelatin that's been sitting for 5 to 10 minutes. Squeeze out all the water before we pour it in here. Then we are going to combine the hot cream with the gelatin and pour it over the white chocolate that we melted and put here earlier. And because this is not too hot, it's not gonna split the chocolate, but it's gonna like integrate. I'm using here a rubber spatula that I'm gonna stir in the middle while I pour this. We stir like this in the middle to make sure it's all combined. And then you will get this like liquid, glossy chocolate mixture. Now that the hot cream with the gelatin and the chocolate is combined, we're here gonna add our cold heavy cream. So here we have 150 milliliters of the heavy cream that is cold. And I'm also stirring while I add that to our ganache. As I mentioned earlier, the reason why we use hot and cold heavy cream is to make sure that we don't destroy all the molecules that are needed to actually whip the cream to a thick consistency once this has set. So that's why it's important to have half of the heavy cream to be cold and the other half we're heating. The last step now is to put on cling film up top of the whipped ganache. I personally prefer to have it in the fridge overnight to make sure that it's fully set. At least it needs to be 6 hours in the fridge. And this step is very important because if you try to do it before when it's not fully set and the cream is not fully cold, it's not gonna combine and it's not gonna be this like very silky smooth and thick consistency that we need for the whipped ganache. It's gonna be more thin. So there is you need to be a bit patient with this. So as I said, I always do it overnight, but if you wanna do it less, you can do it for a minimum of 6 hours. So I'm just gonna take the ganache now and put it in the fridge until tomorrow. Now that the cream has set overnight, I'm gonna remove here the cling film and then we're gonna whip it up to a whipped ganache. So we want it to be a thick and smooth consistency and it can take a while. So you just need to use an electric whisker, or if you have like a stand mixer, you can also use that. In the beginning, you can see that the ganache is gonna be quite fluid like this, but don't worry, you just need to whip it more. So we just continue. You can see it's starting to get more thick. So when I lift the whiskers here, you can see it's still fluid, it's still running down. And when we take the whisker up, we want it to only have like a little cream on it. This is still a bit too fluid for piping. So we're gonna whip it more. It is starting to get more thick now. It's almost there. And now it kind of depends on your preference if you want more thin or more thick. I prefer to have a bit more thick because it makes it easier for piping. You just need to make sure that you don't over whip it. This is very important. If you whip it too much and you keep whipping because you want it even thicker, at some point it's gonna split and then you can't really do a lot to save it. So that's a shame. It's gonna have not this smooth consistency, but a bit more grainy if it splits. So just keep an eye out not to do it too much. We can see here, this is almost, I'm just gonna give it a very brief. The way I can see that this is done is when I lift the whiskers now, I only have very little of the cream and it's fully, like you can see it's set. It's not liquid, it doesn't like drip down. And you can see also the cream is set. It has this perfect whipped ganache consistency for piping. This ganache now has the perfect creamy texture that is perfect for piping. It's fully smooth, very velvety and also very airy. Really the perfect texture for decorating cakes. And now to a very important step, which is to actually taste the whipped ganache. And yeah, as you can see, I've been using it on these 4 tarts. And so the question is now, which one should I choose to eat? So I think I will try this one just because I love raspberry and it's just a really good combination with white chocolate. Okay, this one is not gonna be pretty to eat. I should probably have taken one of the others. Well, that's too late now. We here have a nice layer of the white chocolate. So I really love this recipe. It's so good, like, because sometimes white chocolate tends to be super sweet and I don't like when it's too sweet actually. I like it to have a good balance. So that's why, as I mentioned earlier, I also try to minimize the white chocolate while of course still having the flavor of white chocolate. And this recipe just, I think, has the perfect flavor balance while also having the perfect texture that is silky smooth and velvety. It's just, yeah, what can I say? It's really good. I just love this one. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you would like to see more tutorials and recipes, make sure to subscribe. And you can find all my recipes on my website, where you also can read more about my online chocolate decoration courses. And lastly, if you're curious about how to create the piping patterns you have seen on the cakes here, where I use the whipped ganache, I'm gonna do a full piping tutorial in my next video, so keep an eye out for that. See you in the next video!